Greg Blanchett is a volunteer firefighter from Harper, Kansas with over 30 years of fireground experience. Greg owns and operates Blanchett Manufacturing, a company that for over 25 years has built and sold fire trucks all over the United States and in Canada. When it comes to fighting fine fuel fires, Greg, along with thousands of other firefighters, do not see eye to eye with the NFPA. The controversy stems from where and how the firefighters are positioned while riding on the fire truck. Greg, your company builds fire trucks, primarily trucks that fight fine fuel fires. How important to you is the safety of the firefighters who operate these trucks?
Extremely important to me. This is number one on my priority list. This is why I build fire equipment. This is how I got into building fire equipment, because this incident happened to me. I was thrown from a truck.
With safety being the utmost concern, can a firefighter in a standing position be just as protected as a firefighter in a seated position?
Absolutely. A standing firefighter is better protected in a standing position than a seated position. I had a chief sit there and go, the seated position is not a safe position. And I go, you're going to have to explain that a little bit better to me. He goes, number one duty of that person riding that truck is he's commanding that truck. For him to command that truck and what's going on is I got to have a 360 view of what's happening around me. My driver has maybe 180 degrees. He has that other 180 degrees behind him. He doesn't see what's happening. As we're fighting that fire and it's flaring up behind us, or another piece of equipment's coming to the side of us, I'm directing that driver what to do. We got a gully in front of us. Look out for this. Stop. Back up. If I'm sitting down in that position, I got roughly a 90-degree view. If I'm in the standing position, I have a 360-degree view. Behind me is as important as in front of me. I am telling Fire Command what's happening around me. The forestry puts somebody on top of a mountain on a high perch, or has an airplane flying around telling them what's happened. Out here in the plains, it's flat. The highest thing out here is this truck out here fighting the fire. Roger, do you remember out there how Matt was teaching you how to fight fire? Did you really notice what Matt was actually doing? He was looking 360 around him. He was trying to make sure everybody was safe and the vehicle was in a safe location and everything was happening correctly. He's fire command on that truck. So in order to accomplish this, you've got to have 360-degree visibility.
If the firefighter in the standing position can be just as protected as a firefighter in a seated position, does he gain a tactical advantage?
We have, for the last 7-8 years, had the seated position. I went back and investigated what was going on. Nobody used the seated position, including me. Why? Because my tactical advantage is cut down 70%. That's the reason we went to the restraint system. I'm spraying water backwards as much as I'm spraying it forwards. In some cases, more backwards. The only time you'll see a firefighter in the seated position is when he's returning back to the tender. He is resting, or he's exhausted, he's getting hot. He will go into the seated position. So I still keep the seated position available to my firefighter.
What can the firefighter expect on the back of this truck?
The only difference from the outside to the inside is basically the smoke and the dirt.
Can a firefighter have a smooth ride on the back of this truck?
Your suspension is in the same area. You're right behind that driver. I'll give you a good example of this. Think of a school bus. The people in the back of that school bus, which is behind the axle, you hit a 6-inch bump in the road. What happens to the kids all the way to the back of the bus? It launches them. What happens to the kids right behind the driver? Same speed, same bump. They barely move. It's the springboard effect. Behind the cab is important. Now, let's address the speed issue here. Think of a 20-mile-an-hour speed zone. You all go through it. When you're going down the road and all of a sudden you had to slow down to 30 miles an hour, then to 20 miles an hour, you think you're crawling. Our conditions, we cut it down in half of a school zone, 10 mile an hour. You'll see that in parking lots. One of the things said from Jim is the genie's out of the bottle on an ambulance because you're back there working on patients and stuff. We're talking 60 mile an hour speed. It's cut it down to 40 mile an hour. We're going 1/4 that speed. An ambulance and what we're doing is two completely different animals.
Has the risk of death or serious injury to the firefighter been researched and addressed in this type of firefighting?
I spent a lot of time researching this. I found 2 deaths. Both of them occurred in Oklahoma. One was down in Capron, Oklahoma. It was a open cab World War II type vehicle. The driver and the guy riding in the back were both ejected when the truck went over a cliff. The driver was thrown clear. The rider in the back of the truck was crushed. The other incident was in Oklahoma. I can't remember the name, I'd have to look that up, but he was riding on the back end of a truck. The truck was backing up for some reason and he backed into a ditch. When he hit the ditch, it suddenly stopped the fire truck, which threw the guy off the truck and entangled him into a barbed wire fence. He was trying to get out of that fence and the driver was helping him get out of that fence. The fire caught them. The person that was tangled in the barbed wire fence passed away because he scorched his lungs. The other firefighter was severely burnt, but he was able to drop to the ground or something. He survived it. Was this death because he was thrown off the truck? I would say no. The fire killed him. If he was behind the cab of that truck, maintained on that truck, he would be alive today. I designed the fire attack position in the late 80s because of the incident that happened to me. From the late 80s, call it the 90s, to today's date, I found not one death from the fire attack position behind the cab. I could not find any serious injuries from the fire attack position behind the cab. Think about the incident that happened in Texas. The truck rollovers, caught on live video. There was 3 people on this truck. One in the back, one in the middle, on the passenger side, and then the driver. It rolls over on the driver's side. Notice the speed in which this truck rolls over. There was 2 injuries. The driver broke his arm. The guy riding on the back had a leg injury. The guy riding on the center was not injured. We dodged a bullet here. Notice how bad this area was crushed in against the tank. If he happened to be on the driver's side, there would have been a death in this accident or serious injury. What if he happened to be walking alongside that truck? If he happened to be on the right side, the opposite side it rolled, he'd have been fine. He had a 50-50 chance of that happening. He could have tripped about the time trying to get out of the way of that truck. He wouldn't have been able to get out of the way. This is why we've got to have this standards put in.
How fast, how effective can this driver get this firefighter out of harm's way if an emergency should occur?
It is spontaneous, instant. We're already on the move. We just turn out and leave. If we have a guy walking, again, Roger, you experienced this, you have to get your person on that truck. Say a firefighter goes down for heat exhaustion or has a heart attack or something. If he's beside me, I have to load this firefighter. I got to get him back on that truck. I have to call in for aid. Other trucks got to come to me. Help me with this firefighter. My driver at all times knows where his fellow firefighter is. I'm already secured in that area. He's already on my truck. The truck's already moving. In 5 minutes, I'm going to have him back to where we need to have him. I believe this is a reason you don't see the injuries or the deaths.
Blanchett Manufacturing certainly is not the only fire truck manufacturer that creates a standing fire attack position.
Absolutely not. I want to draw your attention to the Texas A&M show. This show's once a year. It's a one-day show. In this show, there was 27 different style trucks there, wildland trucks. It's one of the largest shows you're going to find all these wildland trucks. In the 27 trucks, they were all behind the cab except for 2 of them. One of the trucks there, to pay particular attention to, they got a front riding position now. And their attitude, why do we have to worry about it? Because NFPA doesn't recognize us, so why do we need to recognize them? They feel that this is a better place to fight fire. I said, the problem is with this position is you're the first one to the wreck. And they said, well, they've never had any problems with it. This is another reason we have to attack this and get a set of standards out there. I believe there's over 500 trucks a year being built for the fine fuel firefighters. Roger, you asked me to find out how many fire departments are riding their trucks, has a fire attack position. And I looked at you and said, oh boy, it'd be a lot easier for me to find the ones that weren't doing it. I sent you 30 manufacturers building wildland fire equipment that I could think of. There's a lot more out there, I know there are. But these are the ones that I've seen in the fine fuel area in here. I've seen this. I also sent you a link to the website. Click on that link. Today, I build roughly 40 trucks a year with the fire attack position. If you take that times 30, well, let's not even go by 30. Let's cut it in half. 20 trucks times 30. We're talking 600 trucks. Let's cut it down to 10 trucks per manufacturer. That's 300 trucks. If this tactic wasn't being used, why is there 30 manufacturers building these trucks? Everybody in the fine fuel fire areas, I would say over 90% on the fine fuel, especially your volunteer fire departments, which is the backbone of their firefighting, is fine fuels. The only people that are not riding their trucks are your full-time fire department. The reason for that is in their bylaws, because of insurance and stuff, they have to follow NFPA. I talked to a firefighter from Tulsa, and his comment, I said, do you guys ride your trucks? And he goes, oh, that taboo. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, Greg, we are not supposed to ride our trucks. When we're out there fighting fine fuel fires with mutual aid and stuff, we look the other way. Our trucks aren't designed to ride, but I guarantee you they're riding. Why is everybody copying this position? Very simple. It's a safe, effective tactic.
When it comes to the H factor of a firefighter in a standing fire attack position, what are your thoughts and concerns?
There is nothing safe about this H factor. The only reason the H factor was stuck in there is to make it uncomfortable for the firefighter to stand. He's going to stand because of the safety and tactical advantages. All these years, and the only truck I found roll over was the Kaplan truck and the Abilene truck. The Abilene truck didn't even make in the report because there was no injuries to speak of. There's probably other rollovers. I didn't find them. The reason you don't see more rollovers is basically our speed. Also the terrain we're running, it's very flat.
In your opinion, the use of a fire curtain with a fine fuel fire truck, is that a safe standard? Do you see a better option?
Chief Frazier, I respect you on the fire curtains. I agree with the fire curtains. Our burn time is roughly 15 seconds, maximum 30 seconds. What I mean by that is the fire hits me and I'm in intense flame or intense heat for roughly 15 to 30 seconds. In high fuel, say trees and high brush, high fuel loads, that goes up to almost 30 minutes. It's like going inside of a structure. The grass fire is moving so fast. Roger, do you remember what our terrain looked like? Did you also notice how many trees there were? We teach our firefighters, if you are facing a fire and it's coming at you, do not run. Stand there and wait till it's there. Bring your bunker gear over your head and run through it. But have your path chosen to run. Run through the flames. Because behind the flames, within 5 steps, you're past it. The correct way to put this in here, it needs to be inside the cab of that truck. I will be inside that truck in less than 10 seconds. Let's protect both firefighters, the rider and also the driver. If we have to put it in there to make it standard, we are incurring a cost. We need to have it as an option.
Greg, recently you were featured on KWCH Channel 12 Wichita, Kansas local evening news. The focus of that story was to get the NFPA to consider some needed changes in industry standards. You indicated on that newscast that it was your goal, as well as the goal of many other firefighters, to protect themselves and their communities. What can the NFPA do to assist you and these firefighters in protecting themselves and protecting their communities?
First, I want to say thank you to the NFPA for the opportunity to learn what's going on. Special thanks to Roger for coming out here and actually physically witnessing this on first hand, so he has a real good idea, so he does it correctly. I really respect you for that a lot, Roger. Don Frazier, I appreciate you a lot. You are #1 for that firefighter. I really respect that. Tom Stallnaker, man, you're a walking encyclopedia on these books as NFPA. The work that you have done with me and helped me, and what you wrote the first time, you did an excellent job. And that's the part that I want to address right now. NFPA is well on their way. What I'm arguing here about is it's not correct. What I believe in has already been passed once. What was correct was what Tom Stallnaker wrote in 2012, which was going to come out in the 2014 edition of 1906. It was voted on and it was overwhelmingly passed, over a 3/4%. This was not put into 1906 because of a technicality. It didn't go into public review, if I remember right. Jim, I think you're the one that brought this up. And the reason we went into this short term is because of this position. The reason it's not in there is in that video conference or teleconference, I didn't get on the first part of it. And then when we came to 14, where the riding position come in here, Dave says this is irrelevant because you got to be inside the cab to ride. One stroke of a pen, it was gone. Chief Frazier stepped back in and says, we need to put this back in. Dave, write something up and put it back in. I'm going to have to work to meet all this, but I really feel wholeheartedly this is the standard that needs to be looked at. The person that wrote what we have right now has not got a clue about fine fuel firefighting out in the Midwest and why we do what we do. The H factor is a huge, huge mistake. That's like put us back on the ground. It's not going to happen. I guarantee you I won't build it. Don't kick this can 6 more years down the road. In order for the fine fuel firefighters to recognize NFPA and follow it, NFPA has to recognize the fine fuel firefighters. Thank you very much.